Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Ang Lee's Hulk in 2003. This is one of my first superhero reviews on this channel. The only one really I can say that's a superhero film that I've reviewed. I guess is Incredibles 2. I don't believe I've reviewed the first one. No, I haven't. But yes, basically, I love superhero films, certain ones, and I'm definitely not one of the haters, on the MCU and all that kind of stuff. Really do, when they're at their best. Well, actually, that's spoiling too much. Quite a lot of superhero films, on my 500 favourite films list. Examples being Superman, the original. The Avengers actually is on there as well, and a couple of other ones. Of course, The Dark Knight, and who knows, maybe a couple of the other ones from that trilogy. I do actually, love superhero films when they're at their best. When someone actually makes, a great film out of these, out of the source material. Now, Hulk, of course, is a very, very divisive one, this one, and The Incredible Hulk, I think that's mainly, is bland. This one is, it is more hated, you could say. It's got 5.7 IMDb, which is, well, of course, bad, it's not good. Of course, at the time, it was praised at times, for certain aspects of the film, including the performances, which is pretty, baffling, really. But yeah, basically, I went to see this at the cinema, when I was a kid, and I really did like it actually when I saw it at the cinema. I'd never seen a Hulk film, and I was kind of kind of obsessed with this, and just Spider-Man films as well and stuff like that. I played a lot of the games, and Hulk, I saw it at the cinema, and I really liked it. I did get bored, I think, at moments. But yeah, so I got it on DVD shortly after. And it slowly started to, the more and more I watched it, because I did watch a lot of films over and over as a kid, like maybe some of you did as well. But the more I watched it, the more I kind of thought, actually, I don't really like it that much. I haven't seen it for years. I wanted to see, what this was actually like, when I can fully judge this film now. It's been many, many years, probably about 8 at least. It was, I just watched, this film was on Amazon Prime, and it's very, very divisive. As I say, there are people that do defend it and say it's actually an underrated film. But generally, it is pretty hated on, and definitely one of the least popular superhero films. So, I did have a lot of memories of this as a kid. But yes, I think, I don't hate this film. I don't think it's an awful one. But it is, in quite a lot of areas, a fail, putting it nicely. It just really, it doesn't really work, overall as a film for me too well. I think Ang Lee is a great director. Brokeback Mountain, is a perfect masterpiece for me. I absolutely love that film. Wonderful film, it really moved me on many levels. And of course, Life of Pi, I think that is a stunning film. That's a masterpiece as well, actually, for me. I absolutely adore that film. I haven't actually seen the rest of his films, and I hear there's so many great ones. Crouching Tiger, of course. Hidden Dragon, I've got that on Blu-ray. Just not seen it yet. And Ang Lee, of course, is a great director. I think, but the films I've seen from him, he's wowed me on both occasions. They're amazing. But this film, of course, he's more of a kind of, you could say, art house director, but not necessarily. He just makes, he doesn't really make action films and stuff like that. You could say Life of Pi with the most action that he's done. Crouching Tiger, of course, but again, that is meant to be very, very art house kind of thing, and martial arts, of course, kind of in different there. But yeah, this is very, very, of course, to put it into context, very, very different for him to do. Going to superhero film. Eric Bana has said some things. That it was basically he was trying to do this kind of Greek tragedy, bringing that into the kind of story, which Hulk does kind of have that anyway. Within the actual stories of Hulk and the kind of comic books, but at times. But this was very, very different. He was trying to approach it, in a very, very distinct way, and this shows. It really does. This is a superhero film, and there's many, many superhero films that are, great, that are really, really dark, and kind of, more serious in tone. Of course, The Dark Knight being one of them. But most superhero films, are, at their best when they're, they're more fun. You could say, but that's not really a correct way to kind of say this, but more lively, you could say. This one is very, very it takes itself very, very seriously, of course, which is great. If you have actually got these good stuff there, like the great script, like The Dark Knight, the actual cinematography that is consistent, and the color tones and everything that really go to town on it. This one, this film, of course, Ang Lee directs. He actually, as well, plays a hand in the mocap for Hulk, which is quite amusing. And of course, Eric Bana as Bruce Banner. Jennifer Connelly, who is great in some stuff, is Betty Ross, and then you got Sam Elliott playing the father. He's a general, and in this film, and of course as well, you've got Josh Lucas who plays Talbot, who's basically one of the kind of villains, you could say, of the film. And of course Nick Nolte is the father of Bruce, and he plays quite a big role in the film. So on paper you've got some real talent here. Nick Nolte is a legend. I absolutely love him, especially in Cape Fear. Eric Bana, I've never been a massive fan of, actually, but and he is the main role in this. He plays the main role. But so you've got great talent, here, but really, it doesn't work too well. And I think we could get the positives out of the way first. I think visually, at times it is quite good. The film, there is times where it's really, really ugly, and it's too dark, dull. I'd say a lot of the scenes I can't really see, what's going on, especially the dogfight scene, which is just ridiculous, really, at times, and the whole thing and that where he punches the dog in the private parts, and just the whole way it's been put together is very, very. It doesn't make sense, the geography of it all, but. Not just that, it is really, really poorly lit, and this is quite prevalent in a lot of the scenes in the film. Not well lit, and just very flat cinematography. Other times, when it's outside more, in the daytime, it does have some good visuals. So I praise that. It kind of there is a couple of moments, with the gamma radiation stuff that goes on, where it's some interesting effects, but as well, you have got, of course, the very, very famous editing style of this film, where of course the kind of comic panels. Used in this film, the transitions and everything, the film where the screen, of course, is split into different segments, like a comic book, of course. Now, this really doesn't work for me, but, there is times where, of course, as I said, the visuals is good, but overall, even the visuals, they're not great. The editing, and everything, and the way that the comic book kind of like transitions are used, fails for me mostly, and it really is quite laughable. There's many scenes where it just is pointless. You see the same sort of reaction from different. It's kind of like it is like a comic book where you see it from within a certain scene. You see like in different steps. The stages of the reaction of some person. In a different sort of. For example, a way he's standing, say Talbot or Sam Elliott's character. Is looking at another one, in a different direction at a different point, and it's all in the same frame, if you know what I mean. And it's just very, very baffling, and it just doesn't work. Just because it's a comic book does not mean it has to be, no, it comes from a comic book, of course. It doesn't have to be, like this, as a film. I think it, as in that effect, it does fail, and it really is off-putting. It's quite just so showy, in that sense. It's very, very flashy for the sake of it. And it doesn't, actually add anything to the film. It's just, he kind of, it seems like Ang Lee thought he had to do this because it's a comic book, based off of. Now, there is some action scenes in the film as well. I praise, a couple of scenes here and there. Not really, good action scenes, I wouldn't say, but there's a couple where, the tank bit and everything like that. It's mildly entertaining. It has some tension in there, and it is kind of, it's kind of dynamic in some ways, but really, even that, the action throughout the film is overall not that good. The dog scene, dogfight scene is really, really bad, actually. The scene at the end, the finale, is really just bizarre. And, when it gets to, after a while, there's a massive set piece, it just goes on, seems like half an hour. Once you get, just over the hour mark, it's really, really not that good, it's very, very generic, and that's what I would say. Another positive is really the film starts off, under par, if not, at times maybe just average on the average mark. I could have given it that. It was kind of, it was okay / kind of under par, but because I think it had some good, decent things going for it. I think the flashbacks were actually quite good at times, although a bit heavy-handed, a bit one-sided, and a bit campy, you could say, but it was human. I think the way it kind of delved into his past as a kid, And then you saw, of course, his father, and how things panned out there. I think that whole segment, of the film, and it's kind of used again, in the later stages of the film. I think all of that actually works, you know, okay, to a level that's pretty good at times. I think it's very human. It has definitely has some emotion in there. It definitely does. More than the rest of the film, really, consistently. And I just think, it is actually got it's quite nice moments there, and also very powerful moments. Now, when we get to the modern day, and Eric Bana comes into play, and Jennifer Connelly, this is when it's not as good. It never is good, but the first hour of the film, is really actually it's more, at best okay. It's probably still under average for me. I think it does. It does have some really really bad issues. The dialogue, the line delivery, and just generally the acting. But despite that, it does actually work to a level. And it does have a couple of moments here and there that are quite maybe a bit compelling. I think Nick Nolte, is actually good in the film. I think he's been laughed at on YouTube and everything for that film, but actually I think he gives the best performance of the film maybe along with Josh Lucas. I actually think these two guys in the film are actually they are good. I think Nick Nolte really adds a lot of passion to the film. A lot of the stuff that comes with the actual emotion and the connection that they have the father son when that comes into play is actually it is good. I think it's decent. A shame Eric Bana can't give back in that sense, but this one delves into Bruce's past a lot more. And it's probably you could say it's the worst Hulk film of the century, but it does actually go into his past more than the others. This is what Ang Lee was going for, and yeah, basically it does set up this kind of father son stuff, and it is kind of human and something relatable at times. Nick Nolte, in quite a lot of scenes actually, he is actually good. He shows a lot of emotion. He never really breaks character, and I just think he was kind of compelling. The way that his character was introduced, again, a bit heavy-handed, and it seems like in the scene where he's actually standing outside with the dogs, seems like Cape Fear in reverse. But yeah, basically, yeah, it was compelling. I think it had a lot of charm to the film. The camp was there, but it was enjoyable, and. I think Talbot is a decent villain actually. I think he adds some energy, charisma to the screen. But that's about where it ends with the performances. For me, really, the rest are mixed or not good at all, quite bad. Eric Bana, is not a good choice for this. I don't think he really gave much. There was not much emotion. He was very very bland throughout most of the film. There's a couple moments early on where there's a couple of maybe unintentional stuff, but it seems like a bit jokey at times, and it kind of is mildly amusing, entertaining, somewhat of a warmth to it. But really, the rest of the film, it really doesn't land with me. Very very overly serious, but in a bad way. It just doesn't work, and there's not much emotion there, as I've said. Not a good portrayal of Bruce Banner really at all. And then when you of course get to the Hulk scenes. Of course, when the mocap is involved and all that kind of stuff, the CGI. I think the design is awful. Hulk does not look good. His face, is stupid. And of course, the proportion of his body, the legs and everything, it is a bit off. The Incredible Hulk, what I'd say about that is, in comparison, the Hulk in the Incredible Hulk looks more evil, unlikable. He looks pretty evil in this, but at times, he's kind of innocent looking. In the Incredible Hulk, he looks wholly evil throughout the whole film. Just really, really, just I didn't like what they did with the face, but the body, the physique, it does look better. They got that better. Of course, the Avengers films and the MCU, the later MCUs, of course, the best, in terms of Hulk. This one, as I say, it's disappointing. It's a disappointing portrayal of Bruce Banner, and Hulk, just was not good in this. He just goes around, harming people at times, killing them, and just I don't think really I got what they were going for here. It just wasn't. It just didn't allow me to connect, to this character on any level really. It's just very very unlikable. Just when he kicks Talbot and everything like that, it's just quite unnecessary. I feel it just doesn't really make me connect to this character, and yeah, I just think Hulk in this film is pretty, pretty failed attempt really in many places. And as well, of course, actually for me, and it kind of is an art house film at times. Many people said that, but that when that comes into play, them elements, the word pretentious can probably be used as well. What I mean by this really is the kind of the scenes in the film where Hulk is basically looking at ferns, grass and stuff, and just rocks, covered with moss and stuff like that. It's just kind of very, very off tone and pointless, and it is a bit. It does actually fall into pretentious, way. Now, the dream sequences as well. If they weren't so campy and kind of bizarre, they would really be pretentious as well. Actually, the way it's done, and it just doesn't come off too well. I see, times what Ang Lee was going for with this film overall. I don't think it's a bad film, quite a bad film. It's not far off, but it's certainly not an awful film for me. But I do think it's a weak film. The performances, as I say, are very, very mixed bag. Sam Elliott is pretty, average. Jennifer Connelly, is not good in this film at all. She's great in some things, of course, A Beautiful Mind, Once Upon a Time in America. But, not good here. Eric Bana's a no-go, and of course, Josh Lucas is good, and Nick Nolte is good. But really that's about where it ends. It is a mixed bag, and most of the performances, aren't that good in this film. I do see where Ang Lee was going for with this film, but really overall it is a weak film. I'd have to give it a 48%. I think it's definitely not quite an awful film for me or anything like that, but it just, it has got some things going for it. I think there is some humanity throughout the film. There's a decent relationship set up, with Eric Bana's portrayal of course, Bruce Banner and his father, played by Nick Nolte. But really, that's kind of disappears until the very, very end, and then that ends on a note where it's just very, very bizarre and kind of just, I didn't know what that meant. Really, it didn't. I don't think the film really knew what it meant. In this film, and just this whole, final act is just, it's a bit pretentious. It's very, very boring and dull. The way it's shot is pretty appalling. At night time, the way it's captured, I could barely see anything, and it just doesn't really. It's kind of really, really depressing for the sake of it. I hate it when this happens. It's just, yeah, it's definitely a very, very art house superhero film in that sense. Just but in a bad way. There's great art house films, of course. Just didn't work here. And if you love this film, that's fine. But for me, I can watch Avengers. And all the films of the really good Hulk in it. And basically I'll never need to watch this again. It's just not, it's not that great. And of course, it's just pales in comparison to, of course, Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 that came out. Right next to it. It's just, when you compare them, it's just a shame that Hulk, wasn't given a proper, amazing film really till the Avengers. But even then, there's not been any solo Hulk films like this that have actually worked, amazingly well. And it's a shame, because Spider-Man Sam Raimi just hit it out of the park with them films. And of course you had the X-Men films, and then you've got this. It's just, it is a shame that Hulk didn't get the same treatment. It's just, you could say Ang Lee was probably the best director, of all these guys. I can understand that, but for this, it just didn't work. I think, he's a great director overall. He's made some great films, stunning films, and the approach, and everything just didn't work for me. It's very, very dull at times. The second act, especially, once you get into the action scenes, prolonged. It goes on forever, in the way that it's just because it's not well done, really, that well. There's a couple of good bits to say with the tanks, but it's not, Mad Max Fury Road where it's actually amazing action that can be sustained, in this way. It's just not. So it does sag. And then the final act, there's a couple of bits where he goes back to the flashbacks, but really it's just mixed in with so much bizarre stuff that's really, really hit and miss. Overall, the last act of the film, there's a couple of bits, as I say, with humanity, but really the whole bit with the cloud and everything is just bizarre and stupid. You could say the ending's pretty, it's decent, the actual ending, but again, a bit, underwhelming in terms that you didn't really see anything there. But yes, this film really feels, like a compromise, but also just, something that just didn't work for me that well. I don't think it's an awful film, and it's fine if you like it, of course. But, I understand why it's not really that popular. This is definitely, I did used to really like it when I first saw it. It slowly petered out, as I watched it over and over. And then now I do really I do dislike the film. I don't hate the film. I think it has got some things going for it. And I kind of appreciate what Ang Lee was trying to do at times. But overall, it just doesn't work really for me. And definitely one of my least favorite superhero films that I've seen. It's just as I say, the shame that Hulk didn't get the treatment really that the films like Spider-Man and everything and X-Men they got so well really and then Hulk came along and then you've got of course a couple of years after that also Fantastic Four, which that's worse than this. That's really bad. So yeah, it's a shame that Ang Lee at the time couldn't do what he done with so many other films which delivered great films. It's just a shame that it's just really a shame because in terms of directors of superhero films, Ang Lee is one of the best you could say. Christopher Nolan is probably still the best in terms of actually his career, film career that's actually directed a superhero film really you could say. But Ang Lee was one of them guys really that's up there and he made one of the worst. So it's just a shame that and even Danny Elfman's score is very forgettable, and that is shocking. But yeah, there's my thoughts. I don't hate the film, but I do kind of dislike it, and it's not that good for me. It is a weak film. One of my least favourite superhero films. But anyway, thanks for watching my review of Ang Lee's Hulk.